I have been studying philosophy since 2008. As Nietzsche said, there are no facts, only interpretations. Today we'll be talking about existentialism, what it is, its history, and the impact it can have on our lives. It's an individualistic philosophy that promotes freedom and responsibility and aims us away from the objective modes of scientific thinking to focus more on us instead of extrinsic things. It involves such attributes as angst, which means, for instance, if you were to stand by a cliff, you may fear falling off the cliff. But if you have angst, it means you realize you have the freedom to throw yourself from the cliff. The absurd, which means that life is indifferent to our struggles. Good things can happen to bad people, or bad things can happen to good people. Authenticity, which means you set your own path instead of accepting a moral system that somebody else has already devised or a way of going that somebody else has come up with. You have your own way of thinking from yourself. Now that I've told you about what existentialism is, I'll tell you a little bit about the history of it. In the 19th century, there was a Danish philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard who differed from most existentialists in that he was religious and differed from other existentialists in that he was a religious existentialist and came up with specifically Christian, came up with the idea of the leap to faith, which was like where if you have like an objective, if you have a system that you're following, or you have a tough decision to make, you have to find, there's not always the right answer you can find objectively, and you have to subjectively find your own way. Then there was Nietzsche, who was a German existentialist, came up with the controversial idea that God is dead, which seems at first like it's a wisecrack on religion, but that's not what he was aiming for. What he was saying that no longer are things set out in stone. It's mandatory. Belief is a choice now, and it's no longer about your duty, just following an objective duty, but you have to choose now. Everything's a choice. In the 20th century was Jean-Paul Sartre, who is the only existentialist to accept the title of existentialist, and he had a speech called "Existentialism is a Humanism," where he talked about, well, none of us are truly free until all of us are free. Albert Camus was his friend, and he didn't consider himself an existentialist, but an absurdist. He wrote a book called The Plague, which was an allegory of the Holocaust. And he was friends with Simone de Beauvoir, who applied existentialism to feminism. The impact it had on literature and the arts, for instance, Dostoevsky, the Crime and Punishment, Kafka, the Metamorphosis, which focuses more on the absurdity of life. And along with them, there was also the beatniks, such as Jack Kerouac's On the Road, and Allen Ginsberg, and also it had an influence on movies such as Fight Club, where the character doesn't truly appreciate his life until everything is taken from him, his apartment is destroyed, etc. And then also on the movie I Heart Cookies. Now that I've told you about what it is and the history of existentialism, this is the possible impact of existentialism on our lives. It can provide us with a freedom. We're free to change our character. We're not trapped by who we were. For instance, if you make a certain line of decisions and you've developed your character or reputation, you have the freedom to alter that at any time. But contrary to that, it can also has been used to advocate the Nazis. For instance, Hitler used to give out copies of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which was Nietzsche's most famous work, to all of his soldiers, and in a meeting with, what was that Italian guy's name? Jules, you know, the dictator?
Stalin?
No, the other guy. I can't think of his name. Mussolini. Yes, in a meeting with Mussolini, he gave the complete works of Nietzsche to him. So there's that. And also it can be considered somewhat not anti-nihilistic, they would like you to believe, because it empowers your will to find your own meaning in life. Yes, that's still, well, oh yeah, we're getting faster individually. Alright, so you empower your will, find your own meaning in life. It can also, however, contrary to that, it could also lead to nihilism to some people, because it would throw off objective meaning. That it advocates throwing off objective meaning and aiming for subjective meaning. So in a way, it can lead to nihilism depending on the person. After that is, could possibly advocate humanism, as Jean-Paul Sartre would like to believe in his speech, Existentialism is a humanism. However, it can also, contrary to that, some people believe it leads to selfishness and a disdain for the crowd, such as Nietzsche considered people the herd, and that submissiveness and guilt were all slave virtues, and so in a way it depends on the person advocating that. All right, now that I've explained what it is, the history of it, and its impact on our lives, I'll leave you with the Rudyard Kipling quote. People think we're searching for the meaning of life, but I think what we're truly looking for is the experience of being alive. The end.